everybody, and welcome back to another video from Northeast Christian Apologetics. My name's Simon Williams, and today we're going to be reading through the introduction of Christian Apologetics by Douglas Groothuis. I've decided that I want to read through this book because through Northeast Christian Apologetics, I go to local churches and I facilitate classes on Christian apologetics, and one of those classes is Apologetics 101. And it's a video series that's taught by Dr. Douglas Groothuis, and he goes through his book in that video series, Christian Apologetics. I have right here is the first edition, but on the screen we have the second edition. And the video series of Apologetics 101 goes through the first edition, but since the second edition is out, I'm going to be reading through that one instead. And I'm going to be corresponding when chapters correspond to the video series. I'm going to be indicating that at the beginning of the videos. So if you, another reason why I'm doing this is because the people in the classes that I host, that I facilitate, have bought Dr. Groothuis's book and some of them are having difficulty reading it, whether it's because they're dyslexic or they're just having trouble understanding key points. So I'm going to read through this book, just like I do with the other books, and just like I do on Monday Night Book Study. I'm going to read through it and discuss key points, and also questions and elaborate on questions that pop up during the reading. Make sure that you buy this book and have it to yourself and follow along and make it your own. Make sure you have highlights and taking notes and things like that. You can get this Christian Apologetics book by Dr. Groothuis from christianbooks.com, and you can also get it on Amazon. If you're going to do a Kindle version, then obviously you got to get through Amazon and stuff like that. But you can also get the paperback copy or the hardback copy from christianbooks.com. If you are part of my local groups and you're wondering which session this corresponds to, this chapter, this introduction corresponds to session 1, Introduction to Apologetics. Okay. Also, if you want to read these books more rapidly, more freely, like I said earlier, I highly recommend getting or purchasing the book yourself. Or if you want to hear a reading of this book without my ums and hms and things of that nature, and without my discussion points, I highly recommend getting the audible version of the book. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the introduction, which is Hope, Despair, and Knowing Reality. So, Dr. Groothuis says, is there hope for the universe? There certainly is hope in the universe, given the presence of hopers, we who think and speak in the future tense, who invest ourselves in the distinctly human tense through anticipation, imagination, rumination, and speculation, both informed and reckless. But is there any hope for the universe and its intrepid hopers? One is hard-pressed to find a larger, more significant question than this imperious query concerning the cosmos. For all our cynicism, we are, at the end of the day, inescapably creatures of hope. We look forward, we yearn for something more, something better, anything to give meaning, value, and substance to our short lives. Even when our hopes for family, friends, country, and ourselves are satisfied by a happy reunion, an election that goes our way, a job promotion, a negative biopsy, larger hopes and fears still loom. Yet we strive after the future. Even when we reflect back on our lives, our species, and our planet, we wonder, what does it mean? What will endure? Is history progressing toward a goal or merely staggering along? What of the present instance, the ongoing now of my unfolding or unraveling life? From here and now, we look back and we strain ahead. But what is possible for me to hope, to know, and to do? As we explore the tenses of life, we often fear that our hopes are empty, hollow, mere specters without a home, that in the end it is hopelessness that will rule the day and our destiny. For the possibility of despair is always close at the elbow of hope, acting as a debating partner, if not a heckler. Can one agree with the biblical philosopher that love is as strong as death? Or will death have the last laugh on us all? How we answer these questions, or if we attempt to answer them at all, will shape who we are and who we become. We are all citizens of the universe, anxious travelers much of the time, passing through our days and nights in uncertainty and confusion concerning what matters most. In one sense, we are alone. No one else will live our life or die our death. Each self is unique, responsible, and indissoluble. Yet our fate is bound up with our world and our fellow travelers, each of whom has a particular way of coping with or avoiding these insistent immensities. We are alone, together. What if these perennial human questions, yearnings, and wrestlings with destiny are merely human, all too human? What if hope cannot extend beyond human endeavor itself and is never answered by anything beyond it? What if the millennia of human cries echo only into the empty sky and no further? That possibility must be faced if the quest itself is to have any meaning. In the end, hope without truth is pointless. Illusions and delusions, no matter how comforting or grandiose, are the enemies of those who strive for integrity in their knowing and being. Statements such as, "I like to think of the universe as having a purpose," or "the thought of an afterlife gives me peace," reflect mere wishes. These notions do not address the truth or falsity of there being purpose in the world or of our post-mortem survival, because there is no genuine claim to knowledge, a warranted awareness of reality as it is. A hearty, sturdy, and insatiable appetite for reality, whatever it might be, is the only engine for testing and discerning truth. Truth is what matters most, particularly truth concerning our human condition in the world, its origins, its nature, its purpose, if any, and its destiny. Knowing the truth and living according to its requirements should be the hope and aspiration of the reflective person. Only our knowledge of truth, our awareness of reality, no matter how sketchy or partial, can help resolve the inner bickering between the claims of hope and the fears of despair. The very concept of objective truth is under fire today. Some esteem it as nothing better than a philosophical hangover from less realistic days, a chimera impossible to attain yet still alluring to many. We return to these denials and deniers in Chapter 5. Truth may also be shunned in a more pedestrian manner. Instead of being philosophically pummeled, the concept of truth may simply be shunted aside with a shrug or a smirk as antique and extraneous to real life, which then is defined as little more than what lies within one's short-term memory and what inflames one's immediate expectations. Yet humans are privileged with the ability to transcend their immediate experiences and ponder what matters. Such is the stuff of philosophy, literature, religion, and late-night discussions in college dormitories. At least one hopes these still occur. Perhaps instead of our seeking a reason for hope or asking for life's meaning or meanings, the situation is reversed. Perhaps we are on the witness stand before the jury of life. This is just how the late psychiatrist Viktor Frankl put it in his classic work, Man's Search for Meaning. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. The gas chambers at Auschwitz, at Treblinka, and Majdanek, Frankl observes, were ultimately prepared not in some ministry or other in Berlin, but rather at the decks and in the lecture halls of nihilistic scientists and philosophers. As a prisoner of Hitler's death camps, Frankl noted that those captives with a sense of meaning, that researched beyond their immediate experiences, maintained hope and dignity even in their Nazi hell. Those without benefit of this conviction tended to atrophy and die in the pressure cooker of evil, even if they were spared the gas chambers. Nevertheless, one may live or die for a lie. One may hope in something that gives meaning, direction, and even courage for life, and be on the wrong side of the truth. Zeal does not ensure knowledge. In fact, zeal may serve as a beguiling surrogate for knowledge. It may even blind us to what matters most and destroy others as a result. After months of meticulous preparation, 19 young zealots boarded 4 American passenger flights on September 11, 2001, to carry out a mission that was centered on and animated by a particular interpretation of reality. They were no nihilists barren of meaning, seeking to destroy for no reason, as some early commenters intoned. They endeavored to accomplish the will of God, Allah itself, at the expense of their earthly lives, but in the hope of a paradise of very earthly delights. Their lives they gave, and over 3,000 lives they took, and the civilizations of the globe will never be the same as a consequence. Years before the events of September 11, 2001, political scientist Samuel Huntington spoke of a clash of civilizations that lay ahead. This thesis was a stunning contrast to a much celebrated and debated book on world civilizations by Francis Fukuyama, published in 1992, that heralded the end of history. Reworking some themes from Hegel's philosophy of history, Fukuyama claimed that the liberal democracies of the West set the standard for world emulation. In that sense, history had reached its end, or telos. Other nations would soon follow the lead of these enlightened Western nations. Global conflicts over which form of government was ideal would diminish, since that issue was really settled with the failure of communism and the ascent of liberal democracy worldwide. Fukuyama wondered if this democratizing and stabilizing process might eventually lead to a kind of boredom. But he did not foresee the events that now enshroud us. But Huntington saw another, less felicitous world. The struggles between civilizations, he claimed, would not primarily be fueled by nationalities, politics, ideologies, or economics, but by different cultures and their perspectives on reality. Peoples and nations are attempting to answer the most basic questions humans can face. Who are we? And they're answering that question in the traditional way human beings have answered it, by referencing to the things that mean most to them. What means the most to them is, in the final analysis, their worldview, that complex of concepts that explains and gives meaning to reality from where they stand, given their diverse ancestries, histories, institutions, and religions. The slogan, "One person's terrorist is another's freedom fighter," may be correct on a descriptive or sociological level, but it rings hollow philosophically, since it avoids the vexing questions of hope, meaning, truth, morality, and rationality. Religion is not withering away under the conditions of modernity, nor can it be adequately accounted for on the basis of social and political factors. It has its own intrinsic power in world affairs and in the minds of mortals. But these observations, while important, cannot settle the question of which religion, if any, is true and worth following. Nor can the resurgence of religion in the world, particularly Islam and Christianity in the majority world, count intellectually against a secular worldview that leaves no room for God in its understanding of reality. Truth is not determined by counting noses. To begin to answer these questions regarding ultimate reality, we must dig deeper than charting or anticipating social change. We need to think hard, ponder, and assess the options in light of the sharpest reasoning and the best available evidence. I am convinced that a solid and compelling case can be made for what matters most for everyone in this life and beyond is one's orientation to Jesus of Nazareth, the incarnation of God. Hope here finds its goal in the truth that satisfies and liberates. Finding one's way to this discovery may take many routes. This book carves out a path of intellectual investigation and argument. It is a work of apologetics, the ancient and ongoing discipline of defending and advocating Christian theism. This book is applicable to both unbelievers and those believers who seek a stronger reason for their hope. To this end, we explore the core claims of Christianity in light of the counterclaims of the major rivals in the contemporary world. I do not pretend to be neutral on this score. I am a professing Christian who believes the Christian worldview to be true, rationally compelling, existentially engaging, and socially, globally, and perennially pertinent. So he's increased this. He's increased this because it used to be just true, rationally compelling, existentially pertinent. But he's expanded it. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. However, the book will appeal to rational and factual considerations that any thinking and concerning person should be able to appreciate. Before outlining the contours of my approach in more detail, a few words about my own journey may be apropos, since one's biography invariably shapes one's thinking. Although a book is better judged by the merits of its arguments than by the story and credentials of its author. After my conversion to Christianity in 1976, at age 19, I was counseled by some, although not in so many words, to give up the life of the mind, which I had just begun to explore in my first year of college, in favor of a faith rooted in experience. I attempted this for a few tormenting months. I failed, but I did not give up on being a Christian. There was another and better way. The inquiring mind needs satisfying answers, not merely experiences. As Aristotle put it in the opening sentence of his Metaphysics, man by nature desires to know, and this is no less true for the Christian than for anyone else. Moreover, a Christian anthropology affirms that humans were made to know their Maker and to love God with all their minds. This is often a demanding task, but also a rewarding one. Since my failed experiment in unreflective faith, I have pursued the life of the mind as a calling from Christ. And this resonates with me personally, and probably resonates with you as well if you're listening to this and reading along. Many of us need to have answers for questions that we have. And so this is a great way. I think that this book is a great start for diving into apologetics and getting knowledge. I think that it is well suited for the Apologetics 101 classes that I facilitate at the local churches. You get a little bit of everything in this book. Maybe not a little bit of everything, but you do get quite a bit of some things, a lot of things. So it's really beneficial, I think. It's a great place to start for sure. And I know that this book can get a little tough at times, and I'm going to try to elaborate when I find it necessary. Okay, so Dr. Groothuis continues. Accordingly, I earned graduate degrees in philosophy and worked for 12 years in campus ministry at 2 secular universities. I have written extensively on diverse topics for many different kinds of publications, academic and popular, and have been a full-time professor of philosophy since 1993. I make it a point to speak and write in forums where the truth of Christianity is not taken for granted. I do this in order to challenge the audience with its revolutionary claims as well as to test my own merits in intellectually demanding situations. So while this book makes no claims as to be the final word on the subject, it does flow from a life consistently and continually occupied with the themes it addresses. The book does not presuppose the truth of Christianity, nor does it want to beg any philosophical questions. My approach is that of Francis Schaeffer, who said, "I tried to approach every problem as though I were not a Christian and see what the answer would be." Christian apologetics begins to lay out the biblical case for apologetics and the apologetic method necessary for defending the faith. That faith, i.e., the Christian worldview, is then explained and defended against various false charges. This initial ground clearing is followed by a defense of the concept of objective truth and the need to seek truth passionately, especially given the high stakes of the Christian message, heaven or hell. And so Dr. Groothuis is an expert when it comes to Pascal, Blaise Pascal. He knows a lot about Blaise Pascal, and we're going to be diving into that when we talk about the prudential aspects of Christianity. A big thing that he's talking about here is worldview analysis. And a lot of worldview analysis is talking about truth and evidences that support the worldview. But worldview analysis and which worldview you ought to prefer is not limited to epistemic justifications. We also need to take into consideration pragmatic justifications, prudential justifications. Is it prudentially warranted to be an atheist, or is it prudentially warranted to be a non-Christian? And that's where Pascal's wager comes in. Dr. Groothuis has said that when you do a careful analysis of Pascal's wager, then you get an understanding that Pascal is arguing that Christianity has such consequences that would warrant justification for investigating it and living in accordance with it. And so he'll get into more detail on that later on, but I think that's really important. I personally am a big fan of Pascal's wager. The next, so Dr. Groothuis continues, the next several chapters address the case for God from natural theology, ontological argument, cosmological design, moral and religious experience arguments for God. To these arguments for theism are added arguments for why the uniqueness of humanity, our greatness, misery, consciousness, and rationality is best explained by Christian theism. The next several chapters defend the historical reliability of the Bible, particularly the New Testament. With that foundation, we take up the identity of Jesus Christ, his claims, his credentials, incarnation, and resurrection. In arguing for these things, we will also be considering alternative views and how they fare intellectually. Having made this overall case for Christianity, we then take up three significant challenges to it. The challenge of religious pluralism. Christianity cannot be the only way, given so many religions. The resurgence of Islam and its claims to be the one true religion. The problem of evil. God cannot be all good and all powerful, given the evils of the world. In the next chapter, I turn the tables and argue that Christianity, of all the worldviews, gives the best existential response to coming, I believe that's meant to say, coming to terms with evil, which is lament. The final chapter exhorts those confident of Christian truth to lead lives that radiate those convictions before the watching, waiting, and weeping world. Two appendices attend to significant questions that have been fully explored earlier in the book. The first appendix defends the biblical doctrine of hell as rooted in the wise and sobering teachings of Jesus himself. And the second appendix, by Richard Hess, tackles some vexing questions related to the reliability and morality of the Hebrew Bible. All right, so with that, we have ended the introduction, and we're up to chapter 1. So let's go ahead and celebrate. Woohoo! All right, we finished the introduction to the book. That shouldn't take too long. All right, so thank you very much for reading this with me. I appreciate it. The next chapters are going to be quite a bit longer. Don't hesitate to, feel free to pause a video or whatever. This video is meant to be listened to, and you can listen to it in the background, or you can follow along in your book and taking notes and things of that nature. So I'm going to have a lot more to say in the following chapters with regard to what's going on in the book and elaborating on things. This introduction is pretty straightforward. But anyway, that should do it for session 1 of Apologetics 101 book reading. I hope that you find it beneficial, and I will see you in the next chapter. All right, thank you, and God bless.